Hello students, welcome to the English class. Today I am going to continue with the same chapter, that is Ivan tries an O level, which is an interesting story about a prisoner named James Roderick Evans, who is dead keen to improve his academic qualification. He is quite very intelligent man and is also known as, or popularly known as, Evans the Break, for he has escaped from prison 3 times on earlier occasions and has now been lodged in Oxford prison. We had read that how he started attending the night classes in O-level German the previous September in the prison premises and was the lone candidate. He was the only one who was taking the class and who was keen to add to his academic qualification, and his tutor wished him good luck one day before the examination, that is on June 7th, but he makes it clear that he had hardly any chances of getting through. But Evans gives an ironical twist to the tutor's observation by saying, "I may surprise everybody." Then at 8:30 on the examination day, two prison officers, that is Mr. Jackson and the new recruit Stephens, visit Evans, and Jackson is aware of the innovative skills of Evans and jocularly calls him our little Einstein. Both have become warm enemies. We all know that how Jackson hated Evans, and then Jackson instructs Stephens to take away everything that may help Evans enjoy himself, and especially advises him to take away the razor after Evans has shaved himself. So Evans was shaving as it was his examination day, and Jackson is particularly critical of Evans' filthy looking red and white bobble hat, but somehow he does not insist on its removal as Evans considers it a lucky charm, and he knew that Jackson is at some corner of the heart he is not so strict, or he is, you can say, very kind hearted, and then Jackson is particularly, as he is critical, so he just insists, first he insists Evans take off his hat, but as Evans tells him that it was his lucky charm and he wanted to wear it, so he did not force him to take it off. And we had read that Evans is a kleptomaniac. He is congenital kleptomaniac, but that means he has inherited this disease from his forefathers, and he is kleptomaniac. That means he had the urge to steal and is thoroughly annoyed at Jackson, who has already taken away his scissors and nail file, because he is very particular about his nails. He informs Evans that he was acting under governor's instructions, and Evans is told that there is just half an hour for the examination to start and is advised to freshen up. Then, as Evans is busy shaving himself, Stephens, he makes preparation for the conduct of the examination in Evans' cell. What does he do? You all know that he makes all the preparations. He brings 2 chairs and places them before the table near the cell door. Then Jackson makes a final appearance to advise Evans to behave himself. Then Evans shows surprise on noticing that his cell has been bugged. That means he had been on a strict watch through the camera or through the microphone, but Jackson endorses the governor's action because nobody would take any chance with a prisoner like Evans, and everybody knows that he is a master planner, as he had already befooled the prison officers thrice. He had escaped from the jail thrice, so he further tells Evans that governor himself will be listening to each and every conversation in the cell. Then we had read about the arrival of Reverend McClary, S. McClary, who is a parson who has been appointed as an invigilator to invigilate Evans during his examination. Then this McClary, or the Reverend McClary, the invigilator, makes his entry in the prison premises and is escorted to Evans' cell, who is found concentrating on his textbook of elementary German grammar. Then at 9:10 a.m. the governor switches on the receiver, knowing fully well that all these precautions were important, because if Evans were to make good his escape, he could have easily done so from the recreation block. He would have escaped from the recreation block only. Still, governor does not want to take any chances because he does not trust Evans. He was trying to make doubly sure, even though then Evans was as safe as houses. In spite of all this, the governor is apprehensive and tells his officer to search McClary. So the invigilator is requested to come out to be searched. His suitcase too is riffled curiously through, and the presence of a small semi-inflated rubber ring surprises them. But they are informed that McClary is suffering from piles, and rubber ring helps him in sitting in a particular position for a long time. Both the prison officers feel satisfied, and the invigilator is once again allowed into the cell. So now further we are going to see what happens. So we have to begin with the third paragraph on page number 77, which says, "Very sorry, sir, I didn't mean to." The embarrassment was still reddening Jackson's cheeks when he found the paper knife at the bottom of the case. "I think I'd better keep this, though, if you don't mind, that is, sir." So, in these lines, the word embarrassed means to feel uneasy or to feel awkward. So, in these lines, it is said that Jackson, he felt very awkward but felt sorry for asking him all that about the semi-inflated rubber ring. He then later on discovers the paper knife in the suitcase and said that he hoped McClary did not mind if he kept it with him. Then further, the next paragraph says, "It was 9:18 a.m. before the governor heard their voices again, and it was clear that the examination was going to be more than a little late in getting underway." Then further McClary says, "You've got a watch?" Evans says, "Yes, sir." Then McClary, "I'll be telling ye when to start, and again when you've 5 minutes left a right." Silence. Then McClary, "There's plenty more o' this writing paper should ye need it." Then again silence. Then McClary says, "Now write the name of the paper 021-1 in the top left hand corner." Then again silence. Then McClary answers, "In the top right hand corner, write your index number 313, and in the box just below that, write your center number 271A right." Then again there is silence. 9:20 a.m. Then McClary says, "I'm now going to." So he's not going to stay here, is he? McClary, "I don't know about that. Then Stephen says, "Mr. Jackson gave me strict instructions too." Then Evans says, "Now am I supposed to concentrate on my exam with someone breathing down my neck?" "Christ, sorry, sir, I didn't mean." The governor reached for the phone. "Jackson?" "Ah, good. Get Stephens out of the cell, will you? I think we are perhaps overdoing things." "As you wish, sir." So, in these lines now, it was 9:18 a.m. when governor heard their voices again. It was understood that the exam will start a little late. Then McClary inquired Evans about having a watch. He answered yes, and he said that he will tell him when to start, and he will again tell him when only 5 minutes will be left. Then Evans said nothing, and McClary gave him instructions about where to write the index number, center number, etc. And he quietly followed it. When McClary was about to say start, Evans interrupted him and looked at Stephens. And Stephens answered that he had He has been ordered by Jackson to stay there for the exam. Then Evans complained of not being able to concentrate if someone will be constantly watching him like this. Then he also felt sorry for this, and Governor called Jackson and ordered him to get Stephens out of the cell as he thought they were doing it a bit too much. And further, the next paragraph says the governor heard the exchanges in the cell. Exchanges in the cell means the conversation that was going on between McCleary and Evans. Heard the door clanged once more and heard McCleary announce that the examination had begun at last. It was 9:25 a.m. and there was a great calm. Calm means quiet. And there was complete silence. At 9:40 a.m. the examinations board rang through and the assistant secretary with special responsibility for modern languages asked to speak to the governor. The examination had already started, no doubt. A quarter of an hour ago. Yes. Well, there was a correction slip which some fool had forgotten to place in the examination package. Very brief. Could the governor please? Yes, of course. I'll put you straight through to Mr. Jackson in D Wing. Hold the line a minute. So now in these lines, now governor heard what was talked on the phone between Stephens and Jackson, and he heard the door being shut and also heard McCleary announcing the beginning of the exam. Then it was 9:25 a.m. and there was a great peace. There was complete calm in the cell, and yet at 9:40 a.m. the assistant secretary of modern languages called up from the examination board to speak to the governor, and the examination had already started about a quarter of an hour ago, and he told him that some fool had not placed the correction slip in the examination package. Then he tried to seek help from the governor, and the receiver assures him of help by directly connecting the call to Mr. Jackson in D Wing. So now this is again a plan. It is a very clever plan. So now this phone call is also from one of the friends of Evans, or one of the planner, one of his friends who is involved in the planning of escaping. And now they are trying to, and they are going to fool Jackson. So now we are going to see how they do it. Further, the next paragraph says, was this the sort of thing the governor had feared? Was the phone call a fake? Some signal, some secret message, but he could check on that immediately. He dialed the number of the examinations board but heard only the staccato bleeps of a line engaged. So staccato bleeps are the long bell which shows that a person is on other line. But then the line was engaged, wasn't it? Yes, not very intelligent. That 2 minutes later he heard some whispered communications in the cell. So in these lines at 9:40 a.m. when the Assistant Secretary for Modern Languages informs the governor about an oversight regarding a correction slip and the necessity of informing the candidate about it, then the governor thought that it could be a fake call, and this could be a reason behind this fear. A line of thoughts came to his mind about the call. The call used to share some signal or a secret message. He then cross-checked it by dialing the number of examination board, and he heard the sound of continuous beep which one hears if the phone is engaged, and after a gap of 2 minutes he heard some whisper, and after a while he heard McCleary giving instructions to Evans. Next paragraph says, will you please stop writing a wee while, Mr. Evans, and listen carefully. Candidates offering German 0 to 1-1 should note the following corrections. On page 3, line 15, the fourth word should read goldenen, not goldine, and the whole phrase will therefore read zum goldenen Loven, not zum goldin Loven. I will repeat that. So in these lines, Now the narrator says that, so in these lines it is said that Evans, in a very heavy Scottish voice, asked him to stop writing for a while and also instructed him to open page 3. Here he gave him some instructions as to make correction of fourth word in 15 and the correction was in the spelling, and he said that the fourth word should read Goldenen, not Goldine, and the whole phrase will therefore read Zum Goldenen Loven and not Zum Goldine Loven. And he repeated his words. Then further in the next paragraph it is said that the governor listened and smiled. He had taken German in the 6th form himself, and he remembered all about the agreements of adjectives, and so did McCleary, by the sound of things, for the minister's pronunciation was most impressive. But what about Evans? He probably did not know what an adjective was. So in these lines it is said that the governor listened and smiled because he had taken German as a language when he was in the 6th class, and he remembered about the adjectives, and so did McCleary. And the minister's pronunciation of the word sounded very impressive to the governor, but he thought that there were less chances of Evans being aware of the adjectives. Then the next paragraph says the phone rang again and the magistrate's court. They needed a prison van and a couple of prison officers. Remand case, and within 2 minutes the governor was wondering whether that could be a hoax. Hoax means prank. So he told himself not to be so silly. His imagination was beginning to run riot. Riot means out of control. So in these lines it is said that meanwhile, in the meantime, what happened? He received a call from the magistrate's court. That is, who is a magistrate? A civil officer who administers law. So from the magistrate's court he receives a call, and there was a need of prison van and some officer, as there was a remand case. And within the next 2 minutes the governor thought it to be a fake call. He thought that it could be a fake call, but then he thought that he was thinking too much and his imagination was getting out of control. Though he was going in the right direction, but still he somehow thought that he was thinking too much, and Evans could not do that. First he thought right that it could be a fake call, but then he again reminded himself or told himself, or you can say explain himself, that he was thinking too much. He must not think that much. Then that means he could not think of the plans of Evans, that how smart he could be, so he could not reach to that level where Evans was. So the next paragraph says Evans, for the first quarter of an hour, Stephens had dutifully peered through the peephole at intervals of 1 minute or so, and after that, every 2 minutes at 10:45 a.m., everything was still all right as he looked through the peephole once more. It took 4 or 5 seconds, no more. What was the point? It was always more or less the same. Evans, his pen between his lips, sat staring straight in front of him towards the door, seeking, it seemed, some sorely needed inspiration from somewhere. And opposite him, McCleary, seated, slightly askew from the table now, his face in semi-profile, his hair, as Stephens had noticed earlier, amateurishly clipped. Amateurishly is what? It is beginner. So they were clipped pretty closely to his scalp, his eyes behind the pebble lenses peering short-sightedly at the church times, his right index finger hooked beneath the narrow clerical collar, and the fingers of the left hand, the nails meticulously manicured, slowly stroking the short black beard. So in these lines it is said that for the first 15 minutes Stephens had looked into the cell through the peephole after a gap of every 1 minute, and then after a gap of 2 minutes at 10:45 a.m. everything seemed normal when he looked through the hole, and there was no difference in the scene inside, and it remained the same as always. Evans was always chewing his pen whenever Stephens he peeped inside the hole. He was chewing his pen, and looking at the front, and McLeary, always seated on his chair, a bit tilted on one side, with his face partly turned. Then Stephens had noticed him earlier that his hair was cut very short near the scalp, and he was reading the church Times through his spectacles, and his first finger was under his collar. The fingers of the left hand were nicely manicured, and he was softly touching his black beard. Then further, it is said that at 10:50 am the receiver crackled to life, and the governor realized he had almost forgotten Evans for a few minutes. Then Evans said, "Please, sir." A whisper. Evans, "Please, sir, louder." Then Evans said, "Would you mind if I put a blanket round me shoulders, sir? It's a bit parky in here, isn't it?" Then again silence, and Evans, "There's one on me bunk here, sir." McLeary, "Be quick about it." Then again silence. So in these lines, the word crackled means crack or sizzle. Parky is cold. So in these lines, it is said that at 10:50 am the phone rang, and after a while the governor found that he had almost forgotten about Evans. He then heard Evans seeking permission from the supervisor to wrap a blanket around his shoulder, as he was feeling cold there, and McLeary, he allowed him. So then at 10:51 am, Stephens was more than a little surprised to see a grey regulation blanket draped round Evans' shoulders, and he frowned slightly and looked at the examinee more closely. But Evans, the pen still between his teeth, was staring just as vacantly as before, blankly beneath the blanket. Should Stephens report the slight irregularity? Anything at all fishy? Had not Jackson said? He looked through the peephole once again, and even as he did so, Evans pulled the dirty blanket more closely to him. Was he planning a sudden Batman leap to suffocate McLeary in the blanket? Don't be daft. Daft means stupid. There was never any sign on this side of the prison. No heating either during the summer month, and it could get quite chilly in some of the cells. Stephens decided to revert to his earlier every minute observation. So in these lines it is said that at 10:51 am, Stephens opened the peephole and was surprised to see Evans sitting with a blanket on his shoulders, and it seemed strange to him, and even thought of reporting Jackson for this few changes he had noticed. Then he again looked at him and noticed that Evans pulled the dirty blanket close to himself. And now Stephens was getting very doubtful about Evans. He even thought that he could harm McLeary by suffocating him within his blanket. That means making McLeary breathless with his blanket, so he can do anything. But then he told himself that he should not behave so foolish, as there is no sun on this side of the prison, not even in summers, and it is normal that the cell gets chilly, so he decided to return back to his every minute check through the peephole. Then further, the next paragraph says at 11:20 am, the receiver once more crackled across the silence of the governor's office, and McLeary informed Evans that only 5 minutes remained. The examination was almost over now, but something still gnawed away quietly. Gnawed is chew in the governor's mind. So he reached for the phone once more. So in these lines it is said that at 11:20 am, once again the governor's phone rang. Meanwhile, McLeary told Evans that only 5 minutes were left for the exam to be completed, and governor was still doubtful about something, but he went to receive the call. Then at 11:22 am, Jackson shouted along the corridors to Stephens. The governor wanted to speak with him. "Hurry, man!" Stephens picked up the phone apprehensively and listened to the rapidly spoken orders. Stephens himself was to accompany McLeary to the main prison gate. Understood. Stephens personally was to make absolutely sure that the door was locked on Evans after McLeary had left the cell. Understood. Understood. So now in these lines, the word apprehensive means worried or anxious. So in this line it is said that at 11:22 Jackson shouted to Stephens as the governor wanted to talk to him. He ran up and listened carefully to each and everything ordered to him. It was his duty to accompany McClary to the main gate of the prison, and Stephens had to be fully assured about Ivan's cell being properly locked. When McClary leaves it at 11:25 a.m., the governor heard the final talks between Evans and McClary.